Seeing as I spend approximately 99.7% of my time talking about video games, it may surprise you to know that sometimes I like my games with a little less video. While I do have a soft spot for board games and slot cars and such, none of them ever even came close to my love of trading card games. There's just something about having the cool little pieces of cardboard be the centerpieces of the game and collecting the specific combination of them to build your perfect deck that I may never get enough of. And when I was a kid, I didn't even really appreciate that aspect. Nobody thought you were cool for having a well-constructed deck, they thought you were cool because you had a Charizard. They thought I was cool, I swear. When I got older though and started to actually enjoy playing the games, I ran into a whole different problem. Who the hell am I gonna play it against? Not only did almost none of my friends play the card games I liked, but my nearest card shop was nearly an hour drive away, and I already had to overcome social anxiety just to make the decision to get into the car. But what if two of my favorite things came together and gave me an opportunity to both play them against other people and ignore the progression of myself as a person by letting me stay inside? Going digital really was the most logical next step for card games, and I've been endlessly happy to see them get more and more popular over the years. You do lose out on the cool factor of owning the actual cards, but I'd say it's a fine trade-off for getting to, you know, play the game. Not to mention that it allows for elements of randomness and takes away all ambiguity about rules or how anything works, since the game handles it all for you. I've played a ton of these games, but I'm not so sure that any of them are befitting of their own full video, so today I'll be taking you through a rundown of a few digital card games I think you should check out. But first, a story. Back around 2011 and 2012, I was endlessly addicted to this game known as Cardfight Vanguard. You know how people often refer to Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic, and Pokémon as the big three of card games? Vanguard's like top 5? Maybe just top 10. The point is that I was introduced to it through its anime, which they actually uploaded on YouTube, and it may honestly be the best card game anime ever made. If you're gonna go watch it because of this video, please make sure it's the original and not the crappy new one. At some point they rebooted the whole franchise, which was maybe not a good idea, and when they did this, they deleted the original first season. It's available right now, but finding it has been pretty consistently shaky since then. I digress. I immediately knew that I needed to start buying packs, but even getting a hold of the cards in Arizona was not an easy task. So when I saw that they were making a 3DS game with online capabilities, I was beyond ecstatic. So that means, of course, they never translated it to English. And when 2013 rolled around and Pokemon X and Y hype really got moving, I was kinda pulled away from Vanguard. I would check back in from time to time just to see what was happening, but no matter how much I loved it, I just had no way to play it. But then, at the start of 2016, I saw it. The announcement of Cardfight Online in English. It was cancelled. But then, in 2019, I saw it. A brand new Cardfight Vanguard game coming to Nintendo Switch. Only in Japanese, why do I even try? The reason I've taken you on this elongated journey through Vanguard's rocky history of just letting me play against other people is to highlight just how much it means to me that Cardfight Vanguard 0 exists. It doesn't exactly follow the rules of the normal game, with some balance changes here and there, and many things being heavily simplified in the vein of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, which may or may not appear later in this video, but man, do I just not care. This is more or less the game I've been waiting for the last 8 or 9 years, and since its English release in April of 2020, it has consumed my free time. It also certainly helps that one of the other things it took from Duel Links was the idea of starting the game with the earliest released cards and following the earliest points of the show, which is obviously the stuff I'm most familiar with. Normally with a video like this, it's common to save the best for last, but I'm saying this right at the start so as many of you hear it as possible. Cardfight Vanguard is my favorite card game of all time, 0 is my favorite game in this video, and I have faith that if a bunch of you give it a shot, you will love it too. Vanguard is built around calling forth the power of the inhabitants of the planet Cray for use in taking down your opponents. As such, there aren't any land, energy, or spell cards here. Every single card is a playable unit. Each one of these units also has a clan that they belong to, and every deck you build is based around one single clan. At the moment, the English version of 0 has 18 out of the 24 different standard clans, so there are plenty to choose from. And while you might question the choice to have that many, every clan's units are pretty damn distinct, especially in what kinds of effects they do. You will find one that fits you the most, and it will be an amazing feeling. And they're not randomly selected. Each clan does what it does for a very specific reason. The good guys get stronger through the power of friendship, the football players pass from one teammate to the other to make big plays, and my personal favorite, the dinosaurs. Sometimes they just f***ing kill each other. because they're dinosaurs. The playfield is made up of 12 circles that you can play units on, 6 for each player. The top middle circle is your Vanguard circle. For all intents and purposes, this is you. You'll start as a grade 0 unit, which is denoted by the top left corner of the card, and on your first turn you'll perform what's known as a ride up to grade 1, which then allows you to play any other grade 1 units on your 5 rearguard circles. Then on the next turn, when you ride up to grade 2, you can call grade 2 rearguards, and then the same goes for grade 3s. By flipping any of your front row units sideways, you can initiate an attack on any unit in your opponent's front row. Attacking with your Vanguard will initiate a drive check, where you'll flip over the top card of your deck and check the top right corner of it. If you see what's known as a trigger, you'll gain whichever effect that specific trigger offers and put the card into your drop zone. If you see nothing, the card goes to the bottom of your deck. And after your drive check, if the power of your attacking unit is at least equal to that of your opponent, the attack will go through, destroying enemy rearguards or initiating a damage check on an enemy Vanguard. A damage check is basically the same thing as a drive check, but the checked card goes into your opponent's damage zone. Bring them to 6 damage and you've won the game. I'll be honest, the damage zone may just be the single most genius idea in the history of card games. On the surface, it's just the inverse of Pokemon's prize cards, but they turn it into so much more than that. Tons of your unit's skills require what's known as a counterblast to activate, where you can flip one of the cards in your damage zone face down. Once you've done it, that damage can't be used again, unless you have another card that specifically countercharges it back face up. Plus, you have plenty of cards with abilities known as limit breaks, which require you to be at 4 or more damage. So while yes, you don't want to let your damage just get run straight to 6, you often do want to allow your opponent to get some shots in so that you can get your deck moving. It's just goddamn brilliant. But I'm not here to explain every single little detail of the gameplay, I'm just here to give you an idea of how it all works. I'm sure I'll blow you all away when I say this, but the main way you'll go about collecting cards is by playing the game to earn and open booster packs. Some clans are only available in certain packs, so please, make sure you're opening the right ones. You can also craft cards that you need using clan materials that you get from AI character fights and from opening duplicate rare, double rare, or triple rare cards from packs. And as much as I want to tell you that this is the perfect digital card game and you need to hop on to playing it right now, it's only fair that I at least mention how truly awful and anti-player the crafting system is. I wouldn't call this game as a whole anti-player, but it's impossible to ignore the blatant flaws here. It's actually kind of simple. Each clan has their own set of 3 crafting currencies. While this does, of course, mean that if you love the Gold Paladin clan, you'll appreciate every single piece of its currency you can get, it also means that cards for clans you'll never play are virtually useless. And let me be clear, you will not have a viable deck for most clans unless you're gonna take out a mortgage on your house to pay for booster packs. I don't hate the Bermuda Triangle clan, which is made up of a bunch of singing mermaids, but considering how selective I have to be with what decks I build, it's just not gonna happen. I need my goddamn cheetah instead. And that's why it sucks ass that I pulled 2 copies of Pearl Sister Perla, 2 copies of Top Idol Pacifica, and 6 copies of Velvet Voice Reindeer. Even disregarding the fact that that's 2 more copies than I can even use in a deck, those extra materials only help me craft more Bermuda Triangle cards. So in other words, they do nothing. A crafting system is supposed to make up for not pulling everything you need from packs, but since it works this way, you could theoretically open endless packs and not have a single new card for the clan you wanted, or a single new piece of its currency. Keep in mind the odds of that would be so astronomically low they're unquantifiable, but you see what I'm getting at, right? And then on top of that, you get like 20 to 30 of that rarity's material for each duplicate, and 1 copy of any card of that rarity costs 100 of them. For 1 copy of 1 triple rare, it's 100 triple rare materials, 200 double rare materials, and 400 rare materials. 150 stamina can get you anywhere from 0 to 20 double rare materials out of 200 that you need for 1 copy of 1 card. For players that are just trying every clan and experimenting as they go, this system is mediocre but acceptable. For everyone else, it's really, really bad. Thankfully, as you can probably assume, I don't think it's something that ruins the game. Now that I've gotten into the habit of saving my packs and planning out what decks I want to play before just going for them, I highly doubt I'll ever encounter another deck that I'm dying to play but can't. And if I ever do, at least I can use a clan from one of the bi-monthly events that can give you enough free cards to build an entire deck for it. As for any other problems, the English version is only on mobile? Basically just play this game, guys, seriously. If you like card games, you owe it to yourself to at least try it. And you've probably already tried Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. Regardless of what you think about this game, it's impossible to say that it hasn't been a huge deal since its worldwide release in 2017. I've always loved Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially its anime, but I never really dove into actually playing the game until Duel Links. So please keep in mind that everything I say about it is coming from the perspective of somebody who has, aside from a week or two of playing Legacy of the Duelist, not really taken part in standard duels. Although that may not be shocking at this point, since Duel Links' speed duels have become so popular, they're printing physical speed duel decks and cards. They literally made a simplified version of the game, and it became so popular that it is now competing with the normal game. I don't know what that says about Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans, but it says something. At first glance, speed duels don't seem to be much different from the standard ones, and that's because they really aren't. Aside from obviously having a smaller playfield, things should be looking pretty familiar. You've got 3 monster zones and 3 spell and trap zones, alongside your field spell zone, your graveyard, your main deck, and your extra deck. Rather than 40 to 60 card decks, we've got 20 to 30 card decks. I mean, there's no dancing around it. This is just faster, smaller Yu-Gi-Oh! And every problem you can imagine coming from that is probably here, but we'll get to that. You can have up to 3 copies of any given card in a single deck, with some of the more overpowered ones being limited to fewer. In addition to that, however, you also select a specific character and skill. The characters, of course, come from the long line of different Yu-Gi-Oh! Seasons from the original series up to 5Ds, and will most likely update to include the XE's era this month, or at least by the end of the year. The skills do all sorts of different things, from adding certain cards to your deck, to letting you shuffle a card back into your deck to draw another, to giving your monsters limited time attack boosts. They're honestly one of my favorite additions to this game. They just make everything so much more interesting, and a lot of decks live or die by their skill. It's honestly kind of difficult to go over each aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh! Since there are 450 exceptions to every rule you can think of, but I'll do my best. You start off a game of Duel Links by drawing 4 cards and gaining 4,000 life points. Surprise, surprise, bringing your opponent to 0 life points is how you win the game. Once per turn, you can normal summon or set a monster to one of your 3 monster zones. A normal summon places it face up in attack position, where the card's attack stat is used, and a set places it face down on the field, where if it's flipped over by your opponent's attack, its defense stat will be used. Every monster also has a level indicated by the number of stars on it. Any level 4 or less can be normal summon no problem, but a level 5 or 6 card requires you to tribute a monster you already have on the field to normal summon or set it, and any card level 7 or higher requires 2 tributes. In the extra deck, you'll have fusion monsters, synchro monsters, and soon enough, XYZ monsters. These are all special types of monsters that require specific conditions to bring out, like fusion's requirements for its specific fusion materials to be fused together with polymerization, or how synchros require a standard monster alongside a tuner monster whose levels add up to match the one you want to synchro summon. And I'm just gonna ignore the fusions that don't require fusion and the synchros that don't require synchro summoning. In terms of spell and traps, things finally get less confusing. You see, both of these types of cards have effects, but aren't monsters, except when they are. Traps have to be played face down and can be activated on your opponent's turn, unlike spells which you can only play on your turn, unless it's a quick play spell, in which case you may be able to activate it on your opponent's turn. Got it? Depending on which character you're playing, the overworld will change to fit locations from that character's season, as well as the consistently respawning AI opponents that populate it. Sometimes if you get an awful opening hand, they can just hit you with some massive combo and kill you in one turn, but otherwise these fights are pretty dang easy, and mostly just here to help you grind through character levels, as well as earn small amounts of the game's many currencies, although few of those currencies matter as much as gems do. The reason that gems are easily the most important is that they're what let you open packs, and Christ on a tricycle, this game system is not as good as I remember. If I can give it one compliment right off the bat, I love that you get a view of every single card available in each set, and I love that there's a set amount of each one in any given box. Basically, if you clear a box down to 0 packs, you will get every card listed the number of times it is listed. And you can reset back to a full box at any point, which is pretty nice in a situation where you may pull the only copy of an ultra rare or super rare card that you're looking for right away. Any extra level of guarantee that you'll get what you want is extremely appreciated. The problem is that it's time to sell your thumbs on the black market if you want any hopes of opening enough packs to get a functional deck going. Okay, hear me out. It's a really fun deck. Half of the new boxes have 180 packs in them, and each pack only has 3 cards, which is pathetic. That's half as many as both of the other games we're looking at today, and you'll feel it. The amount of gems I had after returning, even with me occasionally logging in before this video for free stuff, didn't even get me 2 copies of a common I was looking for, and that's just how it is sometimes, especially with no real crafting system. They want to make sure you never take a break from playing, and it really shows. Luckily, it's not impossible to get moving again, and if I'm honest, they do so many sales and deals that if you're someone who's willing to put at least a little money into it, this game was kinda built for you. It was also built for you if you like crack cocaine, because it is beyond addicting and has the potential to be an absolute time vampire. Whenever I'm into this game, I just lose days to it, which is funny because there honestly isn't a tremendous amount to do other than play ranked duels, which I rarely did back in the day. Yeah, here we are, at the point of the video where I talk about why I stopped playing this game and why it doesn't quite reach the heights I wish it would. It all comes down to the competitive side. Back in the original Yu-Gi-Oh era, I'd be willing to bet that 4,000 life points felt like a lot. In the era where damn near everything is special summoned, it's f***ing pocket change. I'd say 75 to 90% of Duel Links duels are over before both players have taken 3 turns. Hell, I've won plenty of games where I don't even initiate an attack because they surrender after having their fate sealed on their first turn. I mean, just look at this duel. I go first, so I set up my board, of course, with special summons and deck searching and all that crap, and I'm able to get a monster whose effect requires him to be attacked before any of my others, which is just what I want because I have a trap card in the back that will cut his monster's attack in half when he tries to go for mine. And now I wait as he takes forever to make his move and I start flinging the board around the screen because I have a non-existent attention span, and then he finally gets moving. He's normal summoning, he's fusion summoning, he's activating abilities, just look at him pop off right now. He sets up his board with 2 powerful level 7s and he's ready to strike. He goes for the attack and I cut his monster's attack in half, which makes it die to mine. Gee, that was fun. In the Shyamalan twist of the century though, this may also be one of Duel Links' biggest strengths. Yes, some of the game's most powerful effects are on monsters, and thus cause the specific decks that fit those monsters to be the strongest ones, but a ton of the spell and traps with overpowered effects are pretty damn universal, which means as long as you have them, the rest of your deck sometimes just doesn't matter, which means you can play whatever you want. My favorite deck is this coin flip one I made, and compared to the ludicrous stuff on the ladder, it's not particularly busted, but it has useful effects, and it's got spells that draw me more cards, and traps that negate my opponent's effects, so I still get tons of wins with it, which is pretty awesome. But if there's one aspect to Duel Links that I would say is its real biggest strength, it's just that it's Yu-Gi-Oh! Even if it's this bonkers-ass fast version of it. Maybe it's got something to do with how much I loved watching the show and collecting the cards back in the day, maybe it's got something to do with its mechanics, or maybe it's just that name carrying so much weight, but Duel Links gives me a feeling deep down that I just can't ignore. It's magic. Or a tumor. Well, I think we've got time for one more game, so what should it be? We've seen a game that everybody knows, we've seen a game that some people know. It's only right that we go big for the final game by talking about Teppen, Capcom's digital card game. What? Did you not know that Capcom had a digital card game that combined characters from most of their biggest franchises? Who doesn't know that? Everybody. Everybody is the answer. Everybody doesn't know that. Yeah, first things first, before we even talk about the game itself, it's worth mentioning that nobody even knows it exists. It was made by the Ninjala guys, Gung Ho, back in July of 2019, and I've truly, sincerely, never heard anyone talk about it since that first month or two. The trailer for its latest expansion is multiple months old, and yet has amassed a grand total of barely over 9,000 views. If this is at all indicative of how many people are playing the game, oh man, it is boned. And these trailers are actually fantastic, recreating moments from popular Capcom games depending on which characters are appearing in the next set. I mean, Christ, they turned Mega Man X4's embarrassing ass "What am I fighting for?" into a moment that gives me the tingles. How did they do that? And on top of that, these amazing trailers are in service of one of the most interesting card games I've ever played in my life. I should warn you guys that this is the card game I have the least experience and skill with by far, and thus, I don't have a ton to say about it, but I'll do my best. So every card game that's been created in the past 2 decades is always accused of ripping off one of the big 3, and how could this one possibly be any different? Well, I'll tell you how. By not even being turn-based. The matches in Teppen play out in real time, with you and your opponent simultaneously playing cards and setting up strategies. Since there aren't really turns, your mana just builds up at a consistent pace, and you can spend it to play units or action cards. When you play a unit in one of the 3 field slots, an arrow stretches out from it towards your opponent. When it reaches the slot on the other side, if there's an opposing unit in that slot, each one will deal their attack power to the other's HP, and if the slot is empty, the attack will go through to that player's life points. If either of you use an action card, which are this game's equivalent of spell cards, active response time will start, where the game actually does briefly become turn-based. Basically, every time someone plays an action card, the other player can then do the same, and when it's finally done, all effects of those cards will activate at once. This system is pretty sweet, but it is kind of annoying that some decks just repeatedly yank you back into active response. Like, just give me a couple seconds to play the game, damn it. As for the characters, it's so far got 13. Jill and Wesker from Resident Evil, Ryu, Chun-Li and Akuma from Street Fighter, Rathalos, Feline and Nergigante from Monster Hunter, Nero and Dante from Devil May Cry, Morrigan from Darkstalkers, and the boys. The reason I'm playing this game, X and Zero from Mega Man. Don't get me wrong, I have nothing against any of those other franchises, but slapping Mega Man on a game is how you really get my attention. Smash Bros? Mega Man. Uncharted? Mega Man. Vacuum Cleaner? Mega Man. As you can also see, each character belongs to one of 4 colors, and this goes for the cards as well. You'd think the hero color determines what cards you can use, but that's not actually the case. When you're building a deck, you can mix and match all you want, as long as the different colors of your cards and hero don't add up to 4. Aside from that, the color is generally just to give an indication of what that thing will do. Red cards tend to be offensive, green cards tend to be defensive, purple cards tend to debuff or disrupt, and gray cards tend to trade life for effects or do things when they die. Trying to apply the same logic to the heroes kinda works, I guess? The red heroes have fiery personalities or literally shoot fire. The green heroes are generally more peaceful but still definitely determined. The purple heroes have a dark side and are occasionally morally questionable, and the gray heroes are violent or just straight up evil. Each hero also has 3 hero arts to choose from, which are special abilities that can be activated by spending art points, of which you gain 1 per mana you spend throughout a game. Some of these hero arts will give your units effects, some of them will damage or destroy enemy units, some of them will add powerful cards to your hand, etc. The concept of this mechanic is nothing particularly revolutionary, but I do like that they make it so you have to build up to being able to use it. It makes them feel a lot more valuable and substantial. Also, not all arts are created equal, and the more powerful ones tend to rightfully have a much higher cost. It's honestly not incredibly common to use yours more than once a game unless you're using a particularly cheap one like Zero's Fight Against Inner Demons, which is a hilariously on-the-nose name. In terms of the game's crafting system, this is how you do it. You open packs, duplicate cards give you souls, and you can then spend those souls to craft any other cards you want. Intuitive, simple, actually ensures you to get the cards you want as long as you keep playing. It's really not hard to figure out that this is the best way to do it. I could see an argument that perhaps some of the cards are a little too expensive, since we do jump from 800 souls to 3,200 from one rarity to the next, but they honestly don't seem that impossible to come by, and you can only run 1 copy of each of the highest rarity card in a deck, so I think it's probably fine. And the last thing I could possibly mention is how I feel about this game's visuals. If I'm honest with you, I kinda don't think I could possibly love them more. Yes, it's true, I'm a massive fan of cartoony art styles and rarely find myself interested in more realistic ones, but something about this specific style just works for me. Every character feels like they belong here, which I imagine was a big concern when it came to my Mega Boys. I do have a question though. If Zero is this accurately portrayed, what's going on with X? His proportions are downright bizarre, and I'm not sure what the motivation was for any of these changes. I guess the data halo above his head is a reference to the Mega Man Zero games? I don't know, I never played them. What do I look like, a Mega Man fan? Yeah. Regardless, not only am I okay with how virtually everything looks, but I want to print some of these pictures out and frame them on my f***ing wall, dude. Look at this! I'm praying with all my might that Teppen isn't hurtling towards a premature grave, because it really is something special. Though I suppose its fleeting nature is part of what makes me so interested in it while I have the chance to be. But with that, I'd say it's about time we call it a day. There are so many more digital card games we could take a look at in the future, but it only felt right to kind of put these 3 together since they offer such wildly different experiences from each other and make up this perfect mobile card game trifecta. Yeah, eventually they did put Duel Links on PC, but like, God, just shut up. I love card games a lot, and hopefully this video has given you a desire to try out at least one of these awesome games. But even if it hasn't, then thanks for sitting through it regardless. Although, I've got you now. By watching this video all the way to the end, you've activated my trap card. End the episode.